Hey everyone, it's Sean. So today is September 30th, and we have a really awesome podcast for you today. Today I talked to Miss Carol Massey, who we talked about the disproportionate rate that African Americans have been suspended and expelled from school. You don't want to miss this dialogue, so join us for this conversation, and please enjoy this interview. Hey everyone, so it's Sean back with PushTalk, and today I have a very special guest with me. Miss Carol Massey, who has left me to go to the big state of Texas, but has been an advocate in the Cobb County area forever. Miss Massey, how are you doing this today?
I'm great. Miss Cobb County in some ways.
I know Cobb County misses you, should I say that? We miss you and the work that you are doing here. But there was a report that you sent me a few months ago, and I know that, just to clarify, you're not speaking on behalf of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. But can you give me a little bit of background on what this report is and what was the goal of this report before we actually get to talking about some of the details in it?
Okay. The report is called Reclaiming the Future for Our Sons and Daughters. And it was prepared by the Social Action Committee of the Marietta Roswell Alumni Chapter of Delta. This came out early this year, and it really is a summary of about 4 years worth of work we have been doing around suspensions and expulsions of African American students. In 2017, our chapter was instrumental in getting a resolution passed at our national convention to look at the disproportionate educational experience of Black students as compared to their white counterparts. And so we got the resolution passed and then had to decide, okay, so now what? You know, it took probably a year or so to get the resolution on the agenda and through the national organization. But once that was passed, our chapter came back and committed to a 3-year project to really look at what was happening to Black students, and particularly Black males, in the K-12 system in Georgia. Our work really came out of a report prepared by, check his name, Edward Smith and Sean Harper out of the University of Pennsylvania, their Graduate School of Education. They did a report in 2015 that looked at suspensions and expulsions of African American students nationwide. And in the year 2015, there were like 1.1 million suspensions and expulsions of Black kids across the US. 55% of those, so 500,000 plus, were in 13 southern states. Georgia, 10% of those million suspensions and expulsions occurred in Georgia. In that year, Georgia had 101 plus thousand suspensions and expulsions of Black children. And they start, the putting kids out of school started as early as preschool, but we really focus on the K-12 system because that's where you get the most data. So this report documents the work that we did over that 3-year period to really study what are the problems, and we looked at ways to try to have an impact on this issue. It's such a huge problem. It's like so many things that are impacting our community. It's like it's hiding in plain sight. You know, if a family experiences a suspension or expulsion of their child, they're really focused on that child. You know, you don't see it as part of a bigger picture. But I believe it's, you know, a huge inroad into the prison pipeline, because once kids get expelled or they get a record of being a problem child, and that follows them, and if they get suspended multiple times and eventually end up being expelled, then they're out of school. And there's so much documentation on the impacts of missed school days, what that does to a child. And we have extremely high dropout rates as a result of that within our community. So many factors come into play. So if you got a child, especially a young black man, young black male child who's out of school, maybe he's on the street, maybe the parents are working or can't attend to him, maybe he's in a foster care environment, but he becomes prone to so many other influences, behaviors that can impact him for the rest of his life, and may high percentage ultimately end up in trouble with law enforcement and incarcerated.
And
so we want, I'm sorry?
No, I was looking over the report, and it looks like it came from the University of Pennsylvania, where they say 55% of all black suspensions from U.S. public schools occurred in 13 southern states, like you just pointed out. But that would calculate into 813,000 black students in Georgia were suspended from K to 12. And that's only in 2015.
Right. And it happens about like that every year, you know. So that was not an unusual year. That's pretty typical of what happens. Black students are anywhere from 1.8 to 3, or in some school districts, 9 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white counterpart for the same infraction. So there's clear disparity. However, if it's a family that's dealing with this issue, they're not aware of the bigger issue around it. They're having to fight for their one child.
And you know, the part that's interesting is that, you know, because we do a lot of work from the impact of ex-offender rehabilitation. And one of the things that we see a lot in the offender world, people who are prosecuted with crimes, is that African Americans are sentenced differently than most white counterparts. But to think that, to look at this report and know that that's just not something that's happening to adults. Our children are being trained up in that kind of system.
That's right. That's right.
It's crazy.
It's really, and as I say, it's like it's right in front of our faces, but we don't see it. So one of the primary goals of this project that we embarked upon was to raise awareness around just what's happening, to help people see what is going on, to help broaden the scope so that if your family is impacted, you realize you're part of a bigger scheme. And it's not just your one child, but it's part of a bigger, I think, mechanism, conspiracy, whatever term you want to use, to move young black people out of the educational system and into the system of incarceration.
So one of the things that interests me a lot about the report when I was reading through it is that there are things that we can do to kind of help decrease this. So you wanted to point out some of those things that I know that was in the report that you guys think that will be good indications of how we can help?
Well, what we did was to try to develop a model, because our hope is that other organizations, you know, fraternal sororities, community organizations, churches would pick up this report, this information, and start to work on it themselves. And so in this model, we looked at 4 different approaches where we may have impact. The first was advocacy and public policy. So making folks aware of the issue, having groups and individuals to lobby their school boards, their county commissions, their legislators, both local, state, and national, to raise awareness and put the spotlight on this issue. So community advocacy is one strategy that, you know, I really believe we have a great opportunity to develop stronger advocacy around this. The next thing was school site support and accountability. Oftentimes, you know, when you're working with teachers or you're working with school administrators, they're in a system where they have to process and, you know, do things so methodical that they don't often have the support or may not get the training to deal with some of the difficult issues. When you begin to talk to educators about this, you always hear about, well, these kids come to school with so many problems. Yes, they do. But that's, you know, we can't blame the victim. We can't blame the child that they come to school with problems. What are we going to be able to do within the time frame that you have them? What can we do in the community to try to support them and try to mitigate some of these problems? So we looked at school site support and accountability. So we wanted to work with school boards and school principals, administrators, and teacher groups. We started trying to work with the Cobb County School District, and there are challenges with that district. We did meet with their professional development and chief operations officers to begin conversations around some things we had hoped to partner. However, that was in 2020, and within 2 months of our initial meetings, COVID hit, and everything sort of shut down. So it's still my hope that we will be able to pilot some work with that school district and with some of the others in Georgia around one, acknowledging that this is a problem, and then working jointly with educators to figure out strategies to try to help kids not fall victim to this, to educate teachers so that they don't just take the easy road of putting the kid out of school,
right,
putting the kid out of class, which may result in them being put out of school. But to help, there are resources out there to help strengthen teachers' knowledge, to help them deal with some of these difficult cases. But if the administration or the district isn't open to it, the teachers kind of left on their own. So it is our hope to work out some strategies to work with the teachers, with administrators, to try to address some of these issues. The other area we wanted to look at was student support, to help raise awareness of kids. Don't fall victim to this stuff. Try to figure out some ways in the community that organizations, churches, individuals can be accessible to help mentor these children, or to at least be a trusted adult that a kid can voice some of this stuff with, so they don't take it into the classroom. But to raise children's awareness. We had one group with some of the young ladies we work with in sorority, and we talked about this issue briefly with them. I asked the question, how many of them knew someone who was suspended or expelled? And of about 65 young women, I think all but maybe 4 or 5 raised their hand. So the kids see this, they know it, but we want them to not feel like this is their destiny, this is a norm, that this should not be the case. So working with strategies to help students, to see a path that's better than what some of them are seeing now. And then the other area was parent and family support. We wanted to work with community organizations and individuals to help give parents some tools, work with the school councils, realize what their rights and responsibilities are. I mean, we're at a time now where a lot of the parents of children who are in school may have had a difficult time in school themselves. So they approach a school from a very, I want to say almost a negative perspective, or maybe school and education has not been a priority for them. So we'd like to work with families and individual parents to realize the importance of what's happening to your child during the day and how that impacts their life, and try to give them some strategies to know what they can do within the school district. So we listed out in this report strategies and activities that we've taken in these 4 areas.
So one of the things that I find interesting, I was just going through some of the numbers and just looking up some of the numbers, like we're not even, for example, I was looking at Gwinnett County, because I think I recently told you about a situation we have going on in Gwinnett County, and it says that that Black enrollment is 29.7% of the county's enrollment, but 46.5% of their suspensions is African Americans, and that's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, and you see that all across the state, and in all these 13 southern states, you see that.
And let me ask you a question. Is this report public right now? Is it public for people to go online and pull it themselves? It is on our website. It's on the Delta Marietta Roswell Alumni Chapter website. And it is my hope in this year that we will be rolling out a marketing and positioning plan for the report to get it into the hands of organizations and individuals who can really work with it. That was our intent.
just to raise awareness of this issue, because we cannot, tackle it ourselves. But if we can help other folks become aware of what is really going on. So yes, it will be available.
So if it is. The commitments I make is that I am, as soon as you guys give me permission to send a report, because I have it, I know you sent it to me earlier in this year, I'm going to send it out to a whole bunch of organizations I know that work with youth, because we're getting ready to actually start a youth, like a board of youth leaders in the Metro Atlanta area. And I think that having that social, the part that you talk about, having the support for youth, I think actually having other youth who are aware and going back to the school and talking to other kids and telling them like, hey, are you guys aware that this is what's going on? I think that's impactful, right. Powerful.
Yeah, it's, to avoid the traps, right. That's the way I look at it. And to realize one bad step can change your whole life,
Yeah, and I mean, we know it. I mean, I think we met in a situation where we were going to review an incident of one bad choice.
Right.
Who has a young man not even here today.
Right.
One bad choice. So, I mean, I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I appreciate you being willing to come and talk to us about it today. And I appreciate you being in Dallas. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Houston, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're going to delete that part out. So when they
okay, that's fine.
So I'm going to go back and recap that. But I appreciate you being in Texas now and still being willing to work on these issues that are going on in Georgia. Because I think that this is, like you said, very impactful. And I was unaware of it until you actually sent me the support. And I want to see how we can all work together to kind of make sure that we bring these numbers down. We won't get rid of these numbers, we know. But right. We can do, I think that as a community, we can do a lot better in making sure that we're protecting our kids a little better.
I think we can do a lot better. And because it's a national issue, I feel like, there's work to be done in every state. The report that Harper and Smith put out had data on every school district in each of the 13 southern states.
Oh, wow.
So all of the pages that we included in this report, we have data on every school district in Georgia. And if you get the full Smith-Harper report, which is available online at the University of Pennsylvania website, they have the data for every school district in the 13 southern states. And this is not a unique problem to Georgia. It's everywhere that our kids are disproportionately targeted. And, in my thinking about this, you have to ask the question, well, why would this be so? And so I started really pondering that question and doing a little further research. And what really just absolutely blew me away, I began to learn, and I knew nothing about that before, about the prison labor system.
Yeah.
These kids get put out of school, they don't have an education, they may end up committing a crime or at least being at the wrong place, wrong time when a crime occurs. They get incarcerated. So now they're working in these prison systems. And it is a huge multi-billion-dollar industry.
And they're getting paid nothing.
Paid nothing. Between one report I was reading of a young woman who was paid 12 cents an hour to drive a forklift. Now, if that was a union employee, it would probably be $70 an hour, $50 an hour, plus benefits.
Right.
So these companies are amassing huge wealth off of the backs of young Black people who are in these prison systems. It is the modern day slavery. So you start thinking about, well, why would this be so? Well, that's why, because it leads directly into, we all have heard that prison beds are projected based on the third grade reading scores. Mm-hmm. Well, take it a step further. How many of those third graders who can't read are going to be out of school by the time they're in 7th or 8th grade or beginning high school? And now they're strong folks that can work in these prisons. So, I mean, it's just grooming our children for today's slavery. Our nation, the 13th Amendment, prohibits enslaving folks except for the repayment of debt. It's amazing. And this stuff is right here in front of us, and we just don't see it. We're not trained to see it. So we have states that are basically running debtors' prisons. And once a person becomes involved in the system, they have all these fines they have to pay. Mm-hmm. Prisoners actually have to pay for a portion of their upkeep while they're incarcerated. So even if they're earning a wage while doing this, a part of this prison workforce, their wages are then deducted. The expense of them being incarcerated is deducted from their wages. Yeah. So I mean, it's such a vicious cycle, and I cannot in my mind separate the suspension and expulsion issue from the school to prison pipeline issue to the prison workforce issue. To me, they're just on a continuum. And I just don't feel like the average citizen, certainly the average African-American citizen, is even aware of this stuff. We're all party to it. We're complicit in it. When you start looking at the companies that use prison labor, that blew me away. McDonald's. Mm-hmm. By the Happy Meal, that box that the Happy Meal came in, and that burger patty was probably made by a prisoner. Starbucks is holiday time, so now the holiday coffees are coming out. Guess who's packaging those coffees? It's just crazy. I was reading something earlier, looking at Fidelity Investments. Everybody that's in a public system working for city, county, state, federal government probably has a Fidelity IRA. Fidelity is one of the principal funders of a company that lobbies for incarceration issues. I mean, the stuff just blows you away. It touches our lives consistently, and we're not even aware of it. At least I can say I know I wasn't aware of it until I started reading and exploring these issues.
And I wasn't aware of some of those things until you just mentioned it. But I guess, the Bible says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. And until we start educating ourselves on some of these issues, and until it becomes real to us in our household, we're going to keep getting abused by the system because we don't recognize that the system is abusing us, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, there are certain products now I go to buy them. I live in Texas. Bluebell ice cream plant is right up, not too far from where I live. I pass by there, I just shake my head. It's like, okay, probably somebody from the neighborhood is in there milking that cow and churning that machine, Yeah. So it's so sad. I mean, it is a diabolical system that these folks have designed, and we are caught up all in it. So
no, we're going to do our part, and I thank you for coming on today and talking about this. I know we've been working on this for a while, but we're going to do our part to make sure we get the word out about this. And if people want to know more information, we'll put the link to the Delta Sigma Beta sorority for Marietta chapter on our website. On the bottom of this podcast as well, so they can go online and get the report. And we'll actually upload this report to our website too, so people can just go and pull it directly from blackpush.org. But we want to thank Ms. Massey for coming on today. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. And thank you for the work that you continue to do, even though you're not here anymore. You abandoned me. Thank you for the work that you're continuing to do.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's so good to see young people who are picking this up now, because, I'm ready to go somewhere and sit down. So
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.